The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called at 0300 Standard Time, but Ambassador Thekvar knew sleep would be impossible anyway. The Void Storm was less than 6 months away, a cosmic phenomenon that devoured star systems like a hungry beast. Every simulation showed the same result. To save the core worlds, Earth had to be sacrificed. Thekvar's tentacles trembled as he reviewed the data one final time. His species, the Kelthani, had been humanity's strongest allies for over 2 centuries. They had fought side by side against the hegemony wars, shared technology, culture, even genetic material in some experimental colonies. The humans called them friends. The council chamber filled with representatives from 4 to 7 civilizations. The crystalline hierarchs chimed in harmonious frequencies, their geometric bodies refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. The Vorthak delegation slouched in their environmental suits, their methane atmosphere hissing softly. Even the energy beings of Proxima Drift had manifested physical forms for this momentous decision. Chancellor ZYX Star called the session to order. Her voice carried across the chamber with the authority of someone who had governed the galaxy for 3 millennia. "We face extinction," she began, her 4 eyes scanning the assembled delegates. "The Void Storm approaches, and our calculations are absolute. We can save the core systems, but only if we redirect the storm's path." The holographic display showed the galaxy in stunning detail. 4 to 7 civilizations represented by pulsing lights, connected by trade routes and communication networks spanning millions of light years. At the outer rim, a small blue dot marked humanity's home system. "The humans number barely 8 billion, continued the Chancellor. "Their technology, while impressive, cannot match the combined might of our alliance. The mathematical reality is simple. Sacrifice 1 species to save 4 to 7. Thekvar rose on his powerful legs, his translator converting his native clicks and whistles into standard galactic. "Chancellor, humanity has contributed immeasurably to our alliance. Their creativity, their resilience. Their population is insufficient to tip the scales," interrupted Vexmora of the Silicon Confederacy. Her crystalline form sparkled with calculated coldness. 8 billion versus 700 billion. The equation is simple. The Terran representative, Ambassador Sarachan, had not been invited to this session. The Council had voted secretly to exclude humanity from discussions about their own fate. Thekvar felt his stomach acid churn at the deception. They had developed remarkable quantum technologies. Thekvar pressed. Their displacement drives could evacuate entire populations. Perhaps. Their evacuation ships could save perhaps 1 million humans, Chancellor ZYX Star replied. The rest will perish regardless. At least this way, their sacrifice serves a purpose. The vote was called. 4 to 6 delegate would decide the fate of the 4 to 7th member. Thekvar watched in horror as species after species cast their approval. The Vorthak voted yes. The Energy Collective voted yes. Even the peaceful monks of Andromeda, who had sworn never to harm sentient life, abstained rather than vote no. When his turn came, Thekvar's tentacles seized. He thought of Dr. Marcus Webb, the human scientist who had saved his home world from plague. He remembered Lieutenant Sarah Park, who had died protecting Kelthani civilians during the Hegemony Siege. He pictured the human children he had met at the cultural exchange, their bright eyes full of wonder at the vast universe around them. "I vote no," he whispered. The chamber fell silent. Chancellor ZYX Star's expression hardened. The motion passes, 4 to 2 to 1, with 3 abstentions. The Void Storm will be redirected to the Sol system. May their sacrifice preserve the galaxy. The session ended, but Thekvar remained in his seat, staring at the holographic display. Earth continued to pulse with soft blue light, unaware that its doom had been sealed by those it considered friends. He activated his personal communicator, his tentacles shaking as he entered Ambassador Chen's private frequency. "Sarah," he transmitted, "I need to speak with you immediately. About the storm. About the Council's decision." Her response came quickly. "Thek, what's wrong? You sound." "Everything is wrong," he replied. "Everything." Across the galaxy, on Earth, Ambassador Chen received the transmission in her Geneva office. Outside her window, children played in the park, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. She had no idea that in 6 months, the void storm would turn their world to ash and memory. She had no idea that humanity was about to make a choice that would break the universe itself. Ambassador Sarah Chen stared at a quantum communicator, Thekvar's words echoing in her mind. The Kelthani's message had been brief but devastating. The Council voted to sacrifice Earth. The void storm comes in 6 months. I am sorry, my friend. She sat in stunned silence in her Geneva office, watching children play in the park below. Their innocent laughter seemed to mock the cosmic injustice that had just been delivered. 4 to 6 civilizations had casually voted to murder 8 billion humans to save themselves. Her hands shook as she activated the emergency protocols. Within hours, every human leader, scientist, and military commander would know the truth. But first, she had a call to make. Dr. Elena Vasquez answered on the first ring. The lead researcher for Project Exodus looked exhausted, her dark hair disheveled from endless hours in the laboratory. Sarah, it's 3 a.m. here. How many people can we evacuate? Sarah interrupted. Elena blinked in confusion. What? From where? The displacement drives are still experimental. We've only tested small groups, maybe a few thousand at most. Why? All of them. Elena, all 8 billion. How many can we save? The silence stretched between them. Elena's face went pale as the implications sank in. Sarah, what's happened? The galaxy just condemned us to death. The void storm is being redirected to Earth. We have 6 months to save our entire species. Elena's laboratory in Switzerland buzzed with frantic activity. Banks of quantum processors hummed with calculations that would have been impossible just decades earlier. The displacement drive technology had emerged from humanity's desperate need to explore beyond their solar system. Unlike the slow, conventional, faster-than-light drives used by other species, human quantum displacement could move objects instantly across vast distances by temporarily removing them from reality itself. The power requirements are insane, Elena muttered, her fingers flying across holographic displays. To displace 8 billion people simultaneously would require the entire output of our solar collectors for weeks. Then we build more collectors, Sarah replied through the communicator. How long? 6 months. Maybe less if we convert every industrial facility on the planet. But Sarah, the risks. What risks? Elena hesitated. We don't fully understand what happens during displacement. Our test subjects report strange experiences. Fragments of memories that aren't their own, glimpses of places that shouldn't exist, and the quantum entanglement effects. Elena, the alternative is extinction. Across Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Governments held emergency sessions. Scientists abandoned their current projects to work on Exodus. Military forces began converting weapons factories into displacement drive production facilities. The entire human race united with a singular purpose, escape. But in the depths of Elena's laboratory, troubling data emerged from the quantum processors. Her assistant, Dr. James Park, pulled her aside during the 3rd week of preparation. Elena, look at these resonance patterns, he whispered, pointing to cascading waveforms on his screen. The entanglement effects aren't limited to displaced matter. They are creating permanent alterations in local space-time. Elena studied the data, her face growing pale. These readings suggest that large-scale displacement could cause structural damage to reality itself. How much damage? Unknown. But Elena. James paused, running additional calculations. If we displace the entire human population simultaneously, the quantum feedback could propagate across the galaxy. It might tear holes in space-time itself. Elena stared at the data, her mind racing. She thought of the alien civilizations that had condemned Earth, their comfortable assumption that humanity would accept extinction quietly. They had no idea what they had forced humanity to become. Continue the preparations, she ordered. But Elena, the consequences. Let me worry about the consequences, James. Right now, our only obligation is to our own species. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Chancellor ZYX Star received disturbing reports from her intelligence networks. Human industrial activity had increased exponentially. Their quantum signatures were spiking beyond normal parameters. Most troubling, they had ceased all communication with the Galactic Council. She summoned Thekvar to her private chambers. The Kelthani ambassador arrived reluctantly, his tentacles drooping with guilt and exhaustion. "What are the humans planning?" she demanded. Thekvar met her gaze steadily. "Survival, Chancellor. Something we apparently forgot to consider. They must accept their fate. The greater good demands." "The greater good." Thekvar's voice rose, his translator crackling with emotion. "You sentence an entire species to death without even consulting them. Did you expect them to simply lie down and die for your convenience?" Chancellor ZYXR's full eyes narrowed. "If they attempt to flee, they will only die slower, alone in the void between stars." "Perhaps," Thekvar replied, "but they will die free." Neither of them understood that humanity had no intention of dying at all. 3 months before the Void Storm's arrival, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood before the largest gathering in human history. Every screen on Earth displayed her image as she addressed 8 billion people from the Exodus Command Center in Geneva. "Citizens of Earth," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to propose. "We face a choice that no species should ever confront. We can accept the galaxy's judgment and await extinction, or we can take a leap into the unknown." Behind her, holographic displays showed the massive displacement network humanity had constructed. Solar collectors orbited every planet in the system, their crystalline surfaces drinking in stellar energy. On Earth's surface, towering quantum resonators pierced the sky like geometric mountains, their surfaces crackling with barely contained power. "The displacement process will remove us from normal space-time," Elena continued. "We don't know exactly where we'll emerge, but our model suggests habitable space exists beyond the boundaries of our current reality. We will be alone, cut off from the galaxy that betrayed us, but we will be alive." In living rooms, offices, and public squares around the world, humans listened with a mixture of terror and determination. Families held each other closer. Children asked questions that parents couldn't answer. But in every face, Elena saw the same resolve that had carried humanity from caves to stars. The technical challenges had been staggering. Every human would need a personal quantum beacon, synchronized to the global displacement field. The timing had to be perfect, 1 second too early or too late, and millions would be left behind to face the storm alone. Dr. James Park approached Elena after the broadcast, his face grim. The quantum modeling results came back. "Elena, the displacement cascade won't just affect us." She turned to study his data, her heart sinking as she absorbed the implications. "Show me." The holographic display revealed a 3-dimensional map of local space-time. James highlighted the predicted quantum disturbances, waves of disruption radiating outward from Earth's position like ripples in a cosmic pond. "The displacement of 8 billion quantum-entangled consciousnesses simultaneously will create what we're calling a reality fracture," James explained. "The local fabric of space-time will essentially collapse into the void we leave behind." Elena traced the expanding waves with her finger. "Range." "Conservative estimate. The fracture will propagate across 12 solar systems initially, then continue expanding. The quantum cascade could eventually affect hundreds of star systems." The weight of it settled on Elena's shoulders like a mountain. In trying to save humanity, they would doom the very civilizations that had condemned them. The irony was almost perfect. "Have you shared this with the others?" she asked. James shook his head. "I wanted to tell you first. Elena, we can still scale back. Evacuate maybe 1 million people, limit the damage." "No." Her voice cut through his words like steel. "The Council made their choice when they voted to sacrifice us. Now they get to live with the consequences. 8 billion lives versus potentially trillions." 8 billion human lives, Elena corrected. "Our only responsibility is to our own species. They taught us that when they excluded us from our own death sentence." Across the galaxy, strange phenomena began manifesting around Earth's solar system. Trade ships reported navigation anomalies and sensor ghosts. Communication signals experienced increasing distortion. The Kelthani monitoring stations detected massive quantum fluctuations unlike anything in recorded history. Ambassador Thekvar requested an emergency audience with Chancellor ZYXR, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. "Chancellor, the humans are attempting something unprecedented. Our sensors suggest they are building a displacement network of impossible scale." The Chancellor's 4 eyes fixed on the tactical display showing Earth's system. The quantum signatures were off the charts, pulsing with an ominous rhythm that seemed to synchronize with some cosmic heartbeat. Can they actually evacuate their entire population? She asked. Unknown, but Chancellor. Thekvar paused, accessing his species' most advanced theoretical models. The energy expenditure suggests they are not just planning evacuation. The quantum resonance patterns indicate something far more dangerous. Explain. They are going to tear a hole in reality itself. Chancellor ZYX Thara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. In all her millennia of governing the galaxy, she had never encountered a species desperate enough to attempt such a thing. Contact them immediately. Tell them to cease their preparations. They've cut all communication with the Council. They are not taking our calls. The Chancellor stared at the display, watching the quantum signatures grow stronger by the hour. What have we done? On Oath, Elena Vasquez made final preparations for humanity's exodus. Every person on the planet now wore a quantum beacon, their individual signatures linked to the global displacement network. Children wore them like jewelry, adults carried them like prayer beads. They were the key to humanity's survival, or its final act of defiance. The countdown had begun. In 72 hours, humanity would either find a new home among the stars or tear a hole in the universe trying. Either way, they would not go quietly into extinction. The displacement began at exactly 12 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time on a Tuesday that would forever mark the end of one age and the birth of something unprecedented. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the Exodus Command Center, her hand poised over the final activation sequence, watching as quantum resonators across Earth synchronize their frequencies into a single, reality-shaking chord. All stations report ready, announced Dr. James Park, his voice tight with the weight of what they were about to attempt. 8,043,700,000 beacon signatures confirmed. Global displacement field at optimal coherence. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of her daughter Sophia, who stood in a schoolyard in Madrid wearing her beacon like a medal of courage. She thought of every human who had ever lived, every dream and hope and love that had brought their species to this impossible moment. Execute Exodus Protocol, she commanded. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Across Earth, 8 billion human beings simply vanished, their quantum signatures ripped from normal space-time in a synchronized pulse that shattered the fundamental laws of physics. Cities emptied in microseconds. Highways became graveyards of abandoned vehicles. The entire human species translated into something beyond matter, beyond energy, beyond the boundaries of known reality. What they left behind was worse than emptiness. The quantum vacuum collapse began at Earth's coordinates and expanded outward at the speed of thought. Space-time itself began unraveling, creating a wound in existence that consumed everything it touched. The moon disappeared first, its matter simply ceasing to exist as a reality fracture engulfed it. Then Mars vanished, followed by the asteroid belt, Jupiter's moons dissolving one by one into the growing void. On the bridge of the Kelthani monitoring station orbiting Proxima Centauri, Ambassador Thekvar watched in horror as his senses registered the impossible. Chancellor, he transmitted, his voice breaking with static as the communication networks began failing. Reality is collapsing. The humans, they've broken the universe. Chancellor ZYX Thara stood in the council chambers, watching the holographic galaxy map as star systems began winking out of existence. The reality fracture spread like a cosmic infection, consuming everything in its path with hungry inevitability. How long until it reaches the core worlds? She asked the chief scientific advisor. The crystalline hierarch's geometric form flickered with panic calculations. At current expansion rate, 6 months. Chancellor, the same time frame as the original Void Storm. The irony was perfect and terrible. In trying to redirect death away from themselves, they had created something infinitely worse. The Void Storm would have destroyed star systems. The reality fracture was unmaking existence itself. But 8 billion light-years away, in a region of space that existed beyond the boundaries of normal physics, humanity was discovering what lay beyond the edge of reality. Elena opened her eyes to find herself standing in a place that shouldn't exist. The landscape around her defied description. Crystalline structures that seemed to grow from pure mathematics, skies that shifted through colors that had no names, gravity that flowed like liquid music. She was still herself, Still Elena Vasquez, but she was also something more. "Mom!" Sophia's voice called out, and Elena turned to see her daughter running across a field of what might have been grass if grass could sing with harmonious frequencies. The girl's eyes sparkled with wonder rather than fear. "Where are we?" Sophia asked, reaching up to touch Elena's hand. "Somewhere new," Elena replied, looking around at the impossible vista surrounding them. Humanity had found itself in a realm beyond reality, a place where the laws of physics bent to consciousness rather than the other way around. Other humans began appearing around them, materializing out of quantum foam as the displacement field stabilized. James Park emerged from a cluster of geometric flowers, his expression mixing terror and awe in equal measure. "Elena, the readings are incredible," he said, pulling out his quantum scanner. "This space exists in a state of controlled impossibility. It's like reality, but unbound by the limitations we thought were universal." Across this new realm, 8 billion humans began exploring their unexpected refuge. Cities began forming, not built but willed into existence by collective human imagination. The displacement hadn't just moved them, it had fundamentally changed them, transforming humanity into something that could exist beyond the boundaries of normal space-time. Back in the dying galaxy, the reality fracture continued its inexorable expansion. Entire civilizations evacuated their homeworlds, fleeing before the advancing wall of nothingness. The Vorthek abandoned their methane worlds. The Energy Collective dispersed their consciousness across distant galaxies. Even the immortal Chancellor ZYX-Star began preparing escape pods for the first time in 3 millennia. But Thekvar remained at his station, documenting humanity's final gift to the galaxy that had betrayed them. As the fracture approached his position, he transmitted one last message across the failing communication networks. Let the surviving record show that when faced with extinction, humanity chose to take reality itself with them rather than die quietly. They have shown us what it truly means to refuse surrender. The fracture reached his station moments later, and Ambassador Thekvar, the only alien who had voted against Earth's sacrifice, ceased to exist along with the space-time coordinates he occupied. In their new realm beyond reality, humanity felt the cosmic wound they had created, the spreading destruction that consumed the galaxy they had once called home. There was sorrow in that knowledge, but no regret. They had been judged unworthy of survival, so they had rewritten the rules of existence itself. The universe that had betrayed them was paying the price. 1 year after the Exodus, though time itself held different meaning in humanity's new realm, Elena Vasquez stood at the edge of what her daughter Sophia had named the Thinking Cliffs. Below her stretched impossible cities built from crystallized dreams and mathematical poetry, home to 8 billion humans who had become something far more than they had ever imagined. The last monitoring station went dark 3 hours ago, reported Dr. James Park, his quantum scanner showing readings that would have been impossible in their old reality. According to our long-range sensors, the fracture has consumed roughly 60% of the original galaxy. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of civilizations dying in the wake of humanity's escape. Any word from the surviving evacuation fleets? The crystalline hierarchs managed to reach the Andromeda galaxy. Some Vorthek colonies fled to dark space between galactic clusters. As for the others, James shrugged. The communication networks collapsed months ago. We're effectively deaf to whatever remains of galactic civilization. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Humanity had achieved the ultimate revenge against their would-be executioners, but the cost had been the destruction of the very galaxy that had birthed them all. In saving themselves, they had become cosmic genociders on a scale that begged imagination. "Mom, look what I made." Sophia's voice carried across the crystalline air, drawing Elena's attention to her daughter's latest creation. The 12-year-old had somehow willed into existence a miniature galaxy, complete with spinning stars and orbiting worlds, all contained within a sphere of pure light no larger than a basketball. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Elena said, though the sight filled her with complex emotions. In this realm beyond reality, human consciousness had become the ultimate creative force. Children played with pocket universes. Artists painted with fragments of space-time itself. Scientists conducted experiments that redefined the meaning of existence. They had become gods, but gods in exile. A disturbance in the quantum substrate announced the arrival of Director Chen, formerly Ambassador Sarah Chen, who had evolved into humanity's unofficial leader in their new home. Her expression carried news that Elena had been both expecting and dreading. The probe returned, Sarah announced. The one we sent back to normal space-time. Elena's heart raced. 3 months ago, they had managed to create a quantum probe capable of existing temporarily in regular reality, designed to assess the damage they had caused and search for survivors. Show me. Sarah activated a holographic display that materialized from the crystalline air around them. The images were devastating and beautiful in their cosmic scope. Where the Milky Way galaxy had once spun in majestic spirals, now there existed only a perfectly spherical void, a wound in existence that continued to expand at an exponential decreasing rate as it consumed the dark matter scaffolding between galactic clusters. The fracture is stabilizing, James observed, studying the mathematical patterns. It appears to be reaching a natural boundary, probably around 75% of the original galaxy's mass. Survivor count? Elena asked, though she dreaded the answer. Sarah's expression grew grim. Conservative estimates suggest maybe 2% of the original galactic population escaped to other galaxies. The rest... She gestured at the void where 4 to 7 civilizations had once thrived. Elena stared at the display, wrestling with emotions that had no names. Relief at humanity's survival, horror at the scope of destruction they had caused, anger at the circumstances that had forced such a choice, and underneath it all, a terrible satisfaction that their betrayers had paid the ultimate price for their casual cruelty. "Director," came a voice from behind them. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, formerly a quantum physicist from Tokyo, now something resembling a living equation, approached with news that would change everything. "We've detected something impossible. There's a communication attempting to reach us from normal space-time." "Impossible," James muttered. "Nothing can cross the reality barrier we created." But Yuki's readings were undeniable. Somehow, someone was trying to make contact with humanity in their impossible refuge. The message, when they finally decoded it, came from an unexpected source, Ambassador Thekvar. "Humans of the Far Realm," the message began, "transmitted on quantum frequencies that shouldn't have been able to reach their location. This is Thekvar of the Kelthani people. I speak to you from the edge of extinction, from the last intact system before the fracture consumes all that remains of our civilization." Elena felt tears streaming down her face as her old friend's voice continued. "I voted against your condemnation. I alone stood with you in your darkest hour, and I do not regret that choice. What you have done, the destruction you have wrought, it was not justice, but it was understandable. We forced you to become monsters, and monsters we created." The message paused, filled with static that spoke of dying technologies and collapsing infrastructure. "But I have discovered something remarkable in these final days. The fracture you created, it isn't just destruction. It's transformation. Reality itself is evolving, becoming something new, something that can accommodate impossible things like 8 billion gods living beyond the edge of existence." Elena's breath caught as Thekvar revealed his final revelation. "You didn't just break the universe, dear friends. You taught it how to grow." As the message ended, Elena looked around at the impossible realm humanity had claimed as home. At the cities built from pure will, at the children who played with pocket galaxies, at the 8 billion humans who had refused to accept extinction and instead chosen to rewrite the fundamental laws of existence. The galaxy that had betrayed them was gone, consumed by the wound they had torn in reality itself. But from that wound, something new was growing, a universe capable of containing the impossible, where consciousness itself could reshape the foundations of existence. Humanity had not just survived their betrayal. They had transcended it, becoming something the old universe could never have contained. And in the quantum foam of their new reality, Elena could feel other impossibilities stirring, new forms of existence that the expanding fracture had made possible. The universe was learning to dream, and humanity had taught it how.